So as we mentioned, the Spurs and Lakers, they will play tonight across the street from our studios where we're sitting right now, which means it's Wemby versus LeBron. This will be the 5th meeting between these two all-time talents. Now remember, the last time Victor Wembanyama played against the Lakers in Los Angeles, he posted a 5x5, and LeBron had 30 points in a 5-point win. So it was a good one. As we dive into this matchup, we're joined by our do-it-all analyst, Malika McNutt, our senior writer, Brian Windhorst. Brian, I want to start with you here on this game because you have covered LeBron's entire career. You were also with Wemby in Paris before he was even drafted in the NBA. So what's been more impressive to you, Wemby in year 2 or LeBron in year 22?
First off, that you could even ask this question is an incredible compliment to both of them. I would say we've never seen a player play this level of basketball before at age 40 like LeBron is. The dunk that he had last week, shortly after his birthday, we've just not seen it. We've seen a handful of players reach their 40th birthday, but not be bona fide all-stars at that level. And so certainly LeBron is my answer, although I will say what Victor is doing hasn't been done by too many people his age.
I'm on the other side of this one, Wendy, and it's not an easy decision. I agree with how you started the conversation, but I do think the fact that it is Wemby's 2nd year in the league and he's putting up these monster numbers and he's shown a command for the game so early, I think I gotta give the edge to the young fella in this one, only because we know that experience is the ultimate teacher, and that is not to take away from anything that LeBron James is doing. It is just because I have to answer the question, so I'm leaning Wemby.
You know what? I'm going to be the tiebreaker here and say it's LeBron. And I'm going to go back to what Brian knows from having covered him all the way back to St. Vincent, St. Mary's. It's the curse of high expectations. We expected this from Victor, right? I mean, I thought he was going to come into the league and be very good right away. And he's probably been better than we all expected. Yeah. But he is a generational talent. We all saw that when he was playing in the G League showcase. And so LeBron in year 22, my goodness, is there anybody who's had this level of play at this age, with this longevity, and maybe in any sport? Tom Brady?
Sure.
About the only one that comes to mind?
This is a trick question. This is a trick question. I know we always sort of rag on Shanae and give her a hard time on this show when she straddles the fence, but this is one of them, to Brian's point, that the fact that we're even able to ask this question about a sophomore and someone in year 22 is absolutely incredible. And this is why this is must-see TV tonight. To see these two face off, I don't know if we're ever going to be asking this question again after LeBron and Wemby. But since you had a front row seat to both of these two, Brian, is Victor's year 2 dominance, do you think, we just saw the numbers, does it remind you at all of LeBron's early stages of his career?
You know, it's slightly different. Victor is an elite at the absolute top on defense. When LeBron was in his 2nd year, he was already elite on offense. I mean, to go back to 2004, 2005, when LeBron was in his 2nd year, he averaged 27 points. By today's standard, that would probably be comparable to about like 31 or so. By the way, LeBron's 3rd year, he averaged 32 points, and that was when he's the same age as Victor now. Victor is more skilled at this age than LeBron was, no doubt about it. His jump shot and some of his post moves way more developed. LeBron's body and his ability to physically dominate games was stronger than Victor at this age. They're very comparable in their ways that they dominate, but here's what I can sum it up. They were both top 10 players by the time they were in their 2nd season. LeBron started the All-Star game his 2nd year. Victor is a top 10 player. Maybe you could fight a little bit me on that, but I would defend it. LeBron was a contender for MVP his 2nd year. Victor will probably win Defensive Player of the Year in his 2nd year. So the fact that we can talk about them in the same paragraph is fair.
And the fact that both of their teams are in the hunt to kind of get out of that play-in zone, make it into the playoffs, that only adds to this matchup tonight. All right, let's go coast to coast on the weekend's action, shall we? Let's start in Minnesota. It was a quiet night for Ja Morant until the final minute. 2 huge clutch buckets to beat Anthony Edwards and the Wolves by 2. So, Ramona, which superstar do you have more trust in leading their team right now?
Well, the Grizzlies are ahead in the standings, and so I'll give it to them. And this reminded me of the playoffs 3 years ago when these two teams played. I don't know how Minnesota lost. This is their best offensive game in quite some time. Shot 57% for the field, but the Grizzlies, 21 offensive rebounds, and that man right there at the end.
Well, the longest win streak in the NBA, Ramona, it belongs to the Kings. 7 straight under head coach Doug Christie, including a win over Boston on Friday and the Bulls last night. I know. Brian, what is the most surprising thing about this run by Sacramento?
They're defending, Malika. They've got the third best defense in the league during this stretch. Now, look, they've gotten a little bit lucky with some of the opponents missing guys, but they won in Boston without De'Aaron Fox. They're defending. How about Domantas Sabonis? He had a 44-rebound weekend.
Woof,
How about that for a
44
late
weekend?
push to make an all-star up here?
Yeah. Over to Orlando, where all Hoops fans should be happy. Paolo Banchero is back, and last night was his second game since returning from that oblique injury. The Magic beat Philly. They're still without Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner here. Monica, how scary can this team be?
Look, this is sort of my dark horse, if you will, in the Eastern Conference. They've had 15 different lineups, and their injuries have really been the headline. But when you look at it, they've been able to hold on to that fourth spot in the Eastern Conference. Paolo Banchero hasn't just eased back into it. He's had 2 monster games in terms of getting healthy.
If you told me they're the Pacers and they sneak their way into the Eastern Conference Finals, I wouldn't be surprised. The Thunder, they started a brand new win streak this weekend. 2 blowout wins. OKC beat the Knicks by 25 and the Wizards by 41. Mr. Windhorst, the Thunder are 13-1 against the Eastern Conference. Any weaknesses you see right now?
Well, they still have the interior lack of size that bothers them. It just didn't bother them against these two teams. The Knicks have the same problem. They reacted to that Cavs loss with 0.0 hangover, 66-point combined margin of victory. And yesterday, Shea, 17 free throws at his best.
So when I say are there any weaknesses, you're saying no. Now let's take a look at today's electric moment brought to you by Hyundai. The Knicks, they dusted off that loss and stunned the Bucks. Jalen Brunson put up 44 in just 29 minutes. Monica, what stood out to you the most from Brunson's performance?
Well, I think it was the way he started the ball game, Malika. He scored 23 in the first quarter. That's one, I believe, off of his career high of 24 in a quarter. He went on to finish the game with 44 points, but you could tell that it was like, all right, look, we need to get back to the basketball that made us successful over the 9-game win streak, and that is being aggressive and attacking. The three-point line has been huge, though, for the Knicks overall, and Jalen Brunson was 5 of 10 from 3 in this ballgame.
So this is what's a little puzzling to me, though, Monica. The Knicks at this point in the season, they're living up to their lofty expectations, except, as you can see here, against the top 4 teams in the league. New York's 0-5 this season against the Cavs, the Celtics, the Thunder, and the Rockets, and while wins and losses don't tell the entire story, the margins, they haven't exactly been close in these games. It is a small sample size, I know that, but the Knicks, they've come up short against the top teams in the league. Monica, you know this team better than anyone sitting on this panel, so I want to stick with you here. Do you see this team as an elite contender the way they're constructed? Because they're still pretty top-heavy.
So I still see this team as a contender.
Okay.
There is a lot of optimism around Mitchell Robinson returning, but I got to say, they have so far this season lived and passed by the 3, live and die by the 3
Okay.
is the language I want. The three-point line has been hugely important to this team. When they hit at least 12 threes in a ball game, they're 21-3. And against those teams that you mentioned, Malika, the Houston loss was earlier in the season.
Right.
They struggled from the three-point line versus those teams. And so I think they're still growing defensively. We can just state the obvious. I think they know that as a squad as well. But they've got to figure out how to get and knock down good threes. And as of late, Jalen Brunson's been seeing double teams. And with the entire team almost on a slump prior to last night's contest, it's been tough to work through some of that.
Yeah, Brian, you just see Jalen has that stinger, right? And he just goes straight back to the locker room and you just think, oh my God, is this their season? Because that's how much you rely on those guys.
Well, I've seen Mikal Bridges have a great game. I've seen Karl Anthony Towns have the kind of game that can win you a playoff game. And that's why I feel like they are contenders, because there's 3 or 4 guys on that team that can win you a game by themselves. Now, Jalen Brunson, if they're going to do anything in the playoffs, he's got to win you at least a couple games himself. But Karl Towns can win you games. Bridges can win you games. And then defensively, I know it hasn't shown up on paper yet. Monica, you very nicely put that. They're still growing defensively. They're not quite there. They missed Hartenstein from last year. They need Mitchell Robinson back. But they got the wings to hang with Boston, to hang with Cleveland and the best teams in the league.
Brian, what do you think?
I'm lucky Perk isn't here today, because I would face repercussions for saying this. I don't consider them elite contenders. It's really more of a commentary on their defense, as you just talked about, Ramona, and their lack of depth. I think they're already wearing some of their players down. I do love their next 2 or 3 years. All of their players are young. They're all signed. Give Leon Rose and his front office a transaction cycle or 2 to build out this roster following these big offseason trades. I would absolutely bet on the Knicks to outlast a team like the Celtics, who I'm not sure can stay together. But right now, I think it's the Celtics and and the Cavs and then some space before you get the Knicks. And frankly, the results on the floor have shown that when they've gone head-to-head.
Brian, I give it about 13 seconds before Kendrick Perkins is texting us saying, excuse me, let me at him. We're going to have to come back to this tomorrow. We should mention Karl Anthony Towns is playing fantastic. He deserves a lot of credit for this. This is why you go get a Karl Anthony Towns.
Wanna try to boast at what I look like. Think I'm gonna try to wear, I pull up all brains. Jimmy with the heat, I'm on fire. It's 88 over here,